Dr. Murphy, Murphy Medical Associates, and our team at Corona Test CT. Today is August 1st, 2021. That's right. You're watching Murphy's Medical Minute, and today, Florida is on fire. I'm going to go through a couple of the most important events that are going on. We can review a little bit of the Lollapalooza craziness going on in Chicago, and also talk about New York City's own magical homecoming. That's right. Homecoming and Lollapalooza, super spreader events, Delta international hubs of travel. Time will tell. All right, guys, so today in this podcast, this live stream today on August 1st, 2021, we are going to go over reality. That's right. Today, Delta is here. What to do next to protect you and your family from infection, from long COVID, from hospitalization, or from untoward events. That's right. Today, I'm going to go over a couple of things for you. That's right. I'm going to go over a couple of things for you. I'm prepping right now. And I got Linda on the line. Linda, what's up? I look forward to the rest of my commentators. When I go in, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over our slide deck. We'll go over the slides, and then I'll open it up to a little questions. We'll do a little Q&A. Hopefully that's good for everyone, so that way we can go through what the safest thing is to do. And I can tell you right now, it involves N95s. That's right, it involves N95. So let's transition in to our presentation. That's right. Delta is here. What do? It's not July 8th. I forgot to edit that. It is August 1st, 2021. So who is this for? This podcast is for everyone. It's for everyone. That's right, everyone. Why? Because we are not going to ignore it, because ignoring it will not let it go away. Ignoring the problem will not let it go away. We've been at this for March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, March, April, May, June, July, August. Okay, so for the reality check for everyone, that's 17 months of a pandemic that probably will last 36 months. So if we don't ignore it, maybe we can help get through it in an easier fashion. We got some problems though. One of the first problems we have is that the vaccines are breaking through with variants. And on my previous podcasts, I took federal and state governments to task for not appropriately tracking breakthroughs. I can't really blame the state governments. They were only following the federal government guidance. Again, to reiterate, I love all, I serve all. There is no political bent here. There is a competence test at the end. That's all. Second problem we have is that Delta is more infectious, but we knew that. We knew that when I presented the data from India. We knew that when we reviewed the Public Health of England data. Delta's infectiousness is quantified in a CDC leak, and it's just about the same as chickenpox. Another problem, how do we prevent infection? There's a lot of stuff out there. If you want to talk to the guy from Peak Prosperity about his Duazobin 1 and 2, Duazobin 2 had some data. Duazobin 1, they used crazy doses, resulting in bigger problems. Bigger problems than prophylaxis. So how do we prevent this infection? Well, the answer lies with proper ventilation and vaccination. Ventilation and vaccination in that order. In that order. Why? Because it's a lot easier to ventilate everything. A lot easier to ventilate everything. And with vaccination, we are, we're slowly seeing an uptick. Human behavior changes. Just like there's a saying in medicine, all bleeding stops. All bleeding stops. So guess what? Vaccinations are going to go up because human behavior is going to change. And are these variants really scariants, or are they more? And right now it looks like they're more. So what do we need to do? We need to flood the public with N95s. Remember, COVID treatment in science is new and evolves, and there are no scientific facts, only scientific theories that get vetted out over time. So let's talk about vaccine breakthrough. This is something that I mentioned in the last one. The CDC is only tracking breakthrough cases that end up in a hospital or death. So there are lots of other places that are doing their own tracking, a little bit of reporting, but none of them is very good. So why are we getting vaccine breakthrough? Well, we get vaccine breakthrough from a lot of reasons. Some of those reasons include some host factors. If you have an agammaglobulinemia, you're not going to make antibodies. Doesn't mean you won't have a T cell response, but you'll have less of a response, so maybe you'll have breakthrough. There are viral factors, and these viral factors we're seeing now with Delta, with furin cleavage site mutations enhancing infectivity. Mutations of the virus increase vaccine breakthrough. In addition to that, there's some regimen factors of giving the vaccine. Did you give it in the right times? Were the temperatures and the shipping coolers not sub-zero frozen as we began to bend the rules there? There are manufacturing errors, transporting it, batching it. I can tell you right now, and I'll go through my experience with J&J, I have a little worry about a mix-up between J&J and AstraZeneca vaccines. But who's tracking all of this? What's most disturbing is the fact that it was leaked that the CDC was not tracking all breakthroughs because of budgetary constraints. So again, here we are stuck with wealth versus health. Wealth versus health here, guys. There's just nothing more crystal clear than that in this world. So let's talk about my experience with J&J, right? Let's talk about my experience with J&J. So I got the J&J vaccine. It's been 6 months now. I believed that it would be the best one and done vaccination because it had an adenoviral vector, which is a natural process, which I believe would help boost T cells. It would also help boost all of the machinery to recognize an infection with RNA from the novel coronavirus, in this case, the spike protein RNA. I believed firmly that we'd do okay with that. Unfortunately, I had a little egg in my face, a little bit, because we see problems. Well, we see problems with any vaccine. Even the flu has a 1 in a million vaccination case incidence of Guillain-Barré. And no surprise, so did the J&J vaccine. In addition, with the AstraZeneca vaccine and the J&J vaccine, we saw vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia, which meant that we were getting clots in the brain, in the cavernous sinus, and clots in the legs. So what's important about that is none of those people who had those clots had a platelet count that was above 200. So I told everyone they should keep a symptom log. They should end up tracking their platelets. I thought that's an important thing. I do it. I track my platelets. And the reason why I said to keep a symptom log is because we have had some concerns. And I can tell you myself, concern-wise, I have had headaches. I've had headaches. I can't quite figure it out. I'm working it up. More on that later. But the most important thing is if you got the J&J vaccine, don't try and do self-treatment with blood thinners or with vitamins. Don't do it. Be proactive. Talk to your doctor if you have symptoms. Unfortunately, despite getting the J&J vaccine, you can see right here, I just tested myself the other day, 6 months out from a J&J vaccine. That's me, Murphy Stephen, as well as the quality controls for a positive and negative test result. As you can see here, I am listed as non-reactive. That's right, 6 months out from my J&J vaccine, I am not making antibodies to the spike protein at a level that we would call reactive. Unfortunately, I'm at 0.27. Reactive is in the 2 range. We're not there. I'm not there. So does it mean I'm not protected? I don't know. I can't tell you. I can tell you the following. The J&J vaccine also had the T cell response as well as the B cell immunoglobulin response. And I will continue to track this. Which leads me to the next point. Can I get infected? Well, I've been vaccinated, and you just saw that my antibodies are low. The CDC and federal guidance indicated that we didn't need to check antibodies because if we got the vaccine, we'd be protected. That's pretty clear that they were wrong. Yeah, it's pretty clear that they were wrong. We should be tracking antibodies and we should be tracking breakthrough cases. Unfortunately, due to budgetary constraints, the federal government has not done that despite having massive taxes and burgeoning tax revenues. Oh yeah, and the world reserve currency where they can print money till God comes home, give it to banks, which then can turn around and loan it maybe back to the CDC to do the job. So based on a recent CDC leak and now published in Morbidity and Mortality Weekly report, the P-Town outbreak and noted in Barnstable County that we had some significant findings suggesting that people who were vaccinated carried the same viral load as those who were unvaccinated. Which, if you do an ipso post facto analysis, if you do any sort of transitive property here, you will posit a scientific hypothesis. That hypothesis is the following. Are vaccinated people just as likely to get infected and transmit the virus? Those are two questions, as those who received no vaccination. Well, in evaluating this, we found that the viral load was similar between the vaccinated and unvaccinated. And unfortunately, due to the lack of encouragement for testing of those who are symptomatic with vaccination, we have a massive under-testing in the United States, which has led to deflated numbers. So I ask again, who is coordinating? Who is coordinating the evaluation of breakthroughs? Who's coordinating that? And most importantly, do we trust the data? I don't know why we're not tracking all vaccine breakthroughs. Testing numbers pick up. We're going to see a massive amount of breakthrough infections, a massive amount. How do I know? The flu vaccine was only 29% effective in preventing infection. The great thing about these vaccines is they prevent hospitalization and death at a very high rate, and we'll continue to see that. You can look at the data. It's anywhere around 80% for Delta relative to Alpha, 80%. Now remember, we're going to see some efficacy drop because masks have come off. Masks have come off. So because of that, I expect to see more of this. And if you are vaccinated and you have symptoms, I'm going to ask you, please get a test. If you have a headache, if you have a sniffle, if you have a cough, if you have a muscle ache, if you have fever, if you have diarrhea, if you just don't feel right, please get a test, put a mask on, and quarantine yourself till you know. Okay? Why does this matter? Vaccine breakthrough is real. Unfortunately, we removed all of the non-pharmacologic interventions and most notably masks indoors. We let it rip for about a month, and here's what we get. Another COVID wave. So what we found, put simply, is that the infectiveness of Delta is about 40% more than B117, the Alpha. So we have to wonder, what about Lambda? What about the variant isolated in Colombia, B1621? Breakthrough has been worrying, but the data for Delta and vaccination to prevent death has been very reasonable. So in the leak study, here's what we found, right? No big surprise, frankly, if you want my honest opinion, because I have always treated SARS-CoV-2 very similar to chickenpox and always treated it as an airborne virus. Unfortunately, our public health continues to insist we wash hands, which is not a bad thing if you want to prevent conjunctivitis or norovirus. But to really prevent SARS-CoV-2 and the Delta variant, get a good look. N95s. You can try maybe KN95s, but I would prefer we ship N95s everywhere. We now know that the Delta variant is stronger than the Spanish flu. Hopefully I don't get a problem for calling it Spanish flu from 1918. And as a reminder, that outbreak started in 1917 and lasted until 1920. That was a 3-year pandemic. Get ready. This will be, at minimum, a 3-year pandemic. Okay? And when you look at public health officials, when you look at the CDC, they say things such as, I guess I'm worried about what the next one is, right? We already have Delta, we know what to deal with it. And we really have to watch this one called Lambda out of South America, C37, which I don't know the data yet, but it's spreading very rapidly. Well, we do know the data. We reviewed it. It ripped up Peru, but it was not that bad in Argentina. Not that bad in Argentina. So it does have deletions. It's got spike protein deletions, but it appears also that the furin cleavage site deletions are the ones that are a big issue here. So we are definitely worried about the next variant. As you can see here, where's Lambda? It's been around in the US since January, so what's the big deal? Okay, well, Delta's probably been around just as long here, and now it's raising its ugly head. Remember, B117 only lit fire in Michigan. That's the alpha. Delta is lighting up the South right now. Why isn't it rocking everywhere? I would posit that vaccination is definitely helping people not go to the hospital. It's helping people not die. But it's also helping people with cognitive dissonance be able to avoid testing to identify. I'm here to tell you right now, Delta's in the Northeast. It's continuing to grow. We know that it's over 80% of sequences in Connecticut, who continues to produce a very low level of testing relative to the last peak in the winter. Huh. So here we go. Here we are. Is this truly going to be the never-ending story as we wait in line for our 59th booster to stop the new strain? Seriously, is that what we're going to do? We're going to think just booster our way through this? No. That being said, we shouldn't be scared about boosters. We shouldn't be scared about boosters as Israel is ready to offer its older citizens a third shot. It is focusing on the vulnerable. It didn't say we're going to race out and hit 5-year-olds with a booster or hit 15-year-olds with a booster. They're going to give a booster to their oldest citizens, and they have some data behind that. Older citizens with vaccination have waning immunity. We know that, so we're giving them a booster. I'm not saying we shouldn't rush and vaccinate all of our children, but I'm telling you right now, we should be in nursing homes sorting out booster distribution. We should be offering boosters to our elderly. We shouldn't be racing out trying to get 12-year-olds a vaccination when the elderly population certainly could benefit from a boost. And we have to be serious about that. We have to be serious. We have to dedicate our efforts. And right now, I think, frankly, rather than the kid in the background, we should be focusing on those most vulnerable. And in this case, that's the elderly. Okay? Well, as we said before, virus gonna virus, and it's gonna mutate and escape. So do we see a little Lambda vaccination escape? Yeah, we do. It does remain susceptible, but a reduced rate. At a reduced rate in convalescent serum. Remember, the scientific hypothesis is as follows. I have an idea based on data. I need to test that idea out. If that data is tested out and my assumptions are proven correct, I need to replicate that data multiple times in an apolitical fashion before I have scientific theory. So will Lambda escape? Will B1621 escape? We have to get the data. We have to. Stop it. Stop. Yeah, that's cute. Yes, the never-ending story. Congratulations. Congratulations. We can't just booster our way out of this. So how are we going to get out of this? We're going to use PCO2 monitors. Someone tried to play foolish with me today. Oh, I don't know how to use a PCO2 monitor. Okay, guess what? Here's a news flash. I went over PCO2 monitors on YouTube, and I think we should have ASHRAE doing the same thing and send those videos out everywhere. You know who just upgraded the HEPA filters in my building? My building owners, that's right. They went to MERV 13 filters everywhere. Why? Because ASHRAE said you need to monitor air like you monitor water. We don't give poisonous water to people in the pipes in the building. We don't give it in the town. So why aren't we monitoring air like we are water? That we should be just as focused on preventing pathogens in the air as we are as focused on preventing pathogens in the water. In this case, monitoring is really easy. We take a look at the parts per million of CO2. Under 700 is ideal. Under 1500 should be mandatory. ASHRAE is working on updating ventilations, right? This is the American Society for Heating and Refrigeration in America, the engineers. The real problem here is the building codes. Building codes requiring windows to not be open, building codes preventing a whole host of different adjustments that need to happen to buildings. In addition, permitting. Are we going to permit and allow people to drink outside? It's probably the safest way to consume alcohol at a bar would be outdoor bars, not indoor, outdoor bars. So towns have to be flexible with outdoor permitting and windows. And unfortunately, the true devastation from this pandemic is only going to be known in 4 to 5 years. Businesses that are refusing to be part of the solution, frankly, I think because of cost issues or governmental issues, need to be encouraged to do the right thing here. The same thing is true of cities and towns. The problem is that cities and towns have massive depletion in revenue. We know that because small businesses are tanking. You look no further than New York City or Chicago, where we see significant crushing of small businesses. So the problem is Lollapalooza and homecoming. It's not really the solution, it's the problem. So how are we going to fix this? It's not so much the outdoor event. It's everything that happens indoors in the events surrounding it. It is the businesses that will boost revenue. So the solution should be outdoor drinking and outdoor dining. We should allow restaurants to open up again outdoors. Towns have to be flexible with this permitting. Lollapalooza and homecoming, it is very clear that towns need revenue from tourists and locals. And events are essential for this. So how do we keep events safe? How do we do that? Well, first we have to encourage these small businesses who've been crushed. I don't know if you can see this here on this slide, but take a look at the New York City small business revenue in Manhattan in 2020. Make no mistake, it's come up a little bit, but not very much. Take a look, Manhattan was demolished. Queens, demolished. Brooklyn, demolished. Staten Island and the Bronx are a little bit better, but not that much. And if you look at the unemployment rate, where we hit a peak really in May of last year, and have trickled back down, we're still nowhere where we were pre-2020. So what are we going to do? We're going to Lollapalooza it. We're going to Lollapalooza it. That's right. And by losing, I mean we're going to lose the low rate of COVID in New York City. We're going to lose our low rate of COVID in New York City and the surrounding boroughs. Why? Because we're going to have a homecoming event in Central Park to celebrate our rebirth. The only thing that rebirthed right now is a new variant of COVID. So how do we get out? How do we get out of this mess? I've got a lot of our followers, a lot of viewers who are just freaking out. They are saying, I got vaccinated. I did the right thing. Please don't make me go back to masks again. Please don't make me go back to masks again. So how do we get out? Well, we have to have a good prophylaxis for the infection. And what's the best way to do that? Ventilation. You know, in the Legends Club, they shut the doors. The exit door should be wide open. The doors to the stadium should be wide open. I'd love to get in there with a PCO2 monitor to see what's going on. We have to ventilate. We have to ventilate. We have to keep things open air as best we can. That's how we prevent infection. We keep the load of the virus so low that it, Han Solo, we keep it so low that it can't infect people. And we boost up our hardiness. One of the ways we can do that is through abortive medications. Molnupiravir is still at least a few months away, maybe even longer, maybe not till next year. So we need other abortive medications. On Peak Prosperity, they talk about Duazepin 2 here. If you look at the FLCCC, also you can look at these sorts of things, abortive medications. How about we start with preparing the terrain right? Let's get people to lose weight, stay active, have proper vitamin D, zinc, and magnesium levels. Let's try and help them out to fight off any sort of virus. Let's encourage them to get blood work. If their vitamin D is low, let's encourage them to take vitamin D. In addition, we need diagnostics to identify prognosis. If you're sick, are you going to get real sick? We already know right now that the #1 risk factor for hospitalization and death with COVID is obesity and age. Obesity and age. Well, can blood work help? Sure. And we saved a lot of lives by checking things like D-dimers and giving people anticoagulation in their homes to keep them out of the hospital. We also need good diagnostics to diagnose long COVID. Bruce Patterson and his team at InCell, including Dr. Yogendra and Dr. Parikh, have really developed a great program. And I can tell you right now, we're helping take care of those long COVID patients. So that's part of the way out, is helping diagnose and prove long COVID is real and treating long COVID patients. We also need proper vaccinations. Vaccinations with full approvals. We're not going to get sterilizing vaccinations anytime soon. Don't think about it. So are we going to end up here with our 59th booster? I think you're going to lose a lot of public trust if we continue to play that the booster is the only way out. We're going to lose a lot of public trust. We can't booster our way out of this. This is not a video game. But we do need proper FDA approval for vaccinations. And we need a proper encouragement for people to get vaccinated. And we also need proper management and evaluation of adverse events, as well as vaccine breakthroughs. We need to be told the truth. We need to be told the truth, Colonel Jessup. We can handle the truth. And lastly, we need to really think about event testing on site. This went away when masks came off, but I got to tell you right now, I've got a van down by the, no, in all seriousness, I do have a van down by the river, and we need to be able to do event testing. People should come in and they can get antigen tested or Abbott tested to find out whether they're infectious or not. It's just the right thing to do. We have it in Walgreens, but we should really make it mandatory at events. Broadway, swab. Get in the door. It takes 15 minutes. Show up early, get your swab. If you're negative, go in. You're indoors. There should be HEPA filters everywhere. And yeah, if you're vaccinated, you could take your mask off, I certainly suppose, if you have proper ventilation and you had an antigen test that's negative. And do you see what I'm getting at here? We can't booster our way through this. Patients are exhausted and they don't trust the government or the politicians right now. So we need a path out. That path out is, as I've said, since January of 2021, when I have been live streaming here. Prophylactic medications, proper ventilation, masks, abortive medications, diagnostics for oh, wait a second. Isn't this called medicine and medical care? Yeah, it is. It's medical care, and we should be doing it. We should be doing it. And why we're not is crazy. So the takeaway is simple. The variants will come, the variants will go. We just need to keep a cool head about it. The most important cool head we have here is prevention. Prevention is the way out. Vaccines plus prevention techniques, including non-pharmacologic interventions, whether they be ventilation, vaccination, medication, or masks, all need to be part of the mix. I'm sorry, that's the complicated situation we're in. You don't tell someone with diabetes, take this magic pill and you can eat ice cream all day. So why the hell did we do that? Why did we do that? I can tell you why we did that. I can tell you why we did that without a doubt. Let me transition here for you guys. Let me do a little transition. And we'll take a couple of questions from the peanut gallery. All right. So Linda asked a couple questions. She said, I started wearing my mask again when I go into the stores. Linda, I don't know why you took off your mask. I don't understand it. I had been saying for all this time, keep your mask on, keep your mask on. All right. Next question is from Tim Pudd. Tim Pudd, do you trust the over-the-counter test Binax now? It's the Wild West out here, no masks on, most in public. Now remember, now, Tim Pudd, aren't you out there in Iowa? I think you're out there in Iowa, yeah? And you had talked to me a little bit before about why the heck do we need masks if we're not, there's no people around. Well, in certain situations where there's vulnerable people and even in your home, you got to worry about that. And so you asked me the following question. Dad has leukemia and he never stopped masking. Everywhere he goes, and you self-test every time you visit him. You feel like that's all you can do. Well, let me tell you, self-testing is a great way to go. Self-testing is a great way to go here. I can't begin to tell you how many times I think self-testing has put my mind at ease. And one of the advantages I have is that I have the ability to self-test all the time. Now we have them in Walgreens and in CVS and little local pharmacies. Walmart has them. These are the Binax Now cards. And so we know a little bit about the Binax Now data. We know a little bit about the data. And when we look at it the proper way, I want to thank Michael Minna up at Harvard. And I never thought I'd thank someone at Harvard because, you know, boola boola. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a natural tendency to fight each other. But I will thank my friend Mike Murray, who tried to get me to come up there rather than go to New Haven for training. So, yes, you're venting about the situation. So Tim Pudd, sorry, I'm rambling. You're right. You're masking, doing a great job. The tests looked like they had a high false negative rate. They had a high false negative rate, and that means that you swab someone with a Binax Now card and then swab them and do a PCR. The PCR would be positive, but the Binax Now card would be negative. It would be a negative Binax Now card. And so we viewed that as a false negative because you had a positive PCR. But what really needed to be said, and unfortunately the same thing with me, we need to remember our mind changes when we have new data. And we have to be willing to change. If we are not willing to change our opinions, if we're not willing to change our opinions in the face of new data, then we're never going to get through this. And so my opinion has changed here. I think the Binax Now cards that are in CVS and Walgreens, if they're properly stored, if they are adhered to in storage lockers or on shelves or in warehouses, the way that the FDA says they should be properly stored, then they're going to function pretty well. Because what they are is really an infection card, an infectivity card, a contagiousness card for a better word. When you do that Binax Now card, it is going to show whether you are contagious or not. And that's all we really need them for. And that's why they should be at every event. So on to the next question. As I ramble here, I got a couple more minutes. Linda says, how are the kids going to go back to school 5 days a week? They're probably not, Linda. They're probably not. I think that they will for some time. I think there is going to be a worry. And I think the Binax Now cards are, again, I'm going to push them for schools. We're going to do universal masking, so we should be checking with the Binax Now cards for kids. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. You know, another thing that's pretty amazing, you're very welcome, Tim Pudd. Another thing that's very amazing is Yale Pathology and Saliva Direct, who I've been working with, the Yale Pathology Lab, doing sequencing for all of our samples. Saliva Direct is another great way for surveillance in the schools. I keep pushing all of these things, but the question you have to ask is who's gonna pay for it? You know, President Biden put out billions of dollars for genomic surveillance. Are we doing genomic surveillance effectively? No. So where's this money going? And this is a problem we have, is that money is funneled into things like insurance companies that pay their shareholders rather than insurance claims. It's just the truth. They pay their shareholders and the executives. They have to. It's part of their business as a corporation. Any corporation that's taking money to pay for healthcare that's paying their own people first, well, that's concerning. That's concerning. That's going to be evaluated. So today's date is August 1st, 2021. Last year at this time, again, Florida was on fire. The turnaround time from Quest and LabCorp was 10 days. We were doing testing in our own laboratory, getting great results. And we also were preparing for back to school. We were. And last year at this time, we were organizing a massive event of surveillance and testing for the University of New Haven. And I'm proud to say we were part of the solution, identified patients that were positive. We identified a lot of people that were negative, but had exposure. Returning back to school from the summer, they all had exposure. All had exposure. They traveled all over the place, so their exposure needed to be evaluated before they were let back into the dorms. And the University of New Haven did an amazing thing. They did a fantastic job of keeping their numbers down throughout the winter. So kudos to the University of New Haven. We are proud to be part of that solution. Now this year, I expect we're going to see more of the same thing. Except now we have Buy Next Now cards as a measure of contagion. So we'll call them contagion cards rather than pregnancy cards. I think they're a more apt name is find out whether you're contagious or not. And those tests are great for that. So hopefully we can deploy them. Hopefully we can get some solutions here and we can get through the next year of this pandemic. COVID year 2. Let's not be stupid. Let's take care of each other. Let's do our best. Let's take care of our bodies because remember, our bodies are made to be well.